Every weekend, somewhere in a quiet neighborhood, there's a guy who sets his alarm for 6 a.m. Not for work, not for the gym, he's heading to his garage, to a car that already runs perfectly fine. He's about to bolt on a part that costs more than some people pay in rent. His friends think he's lost it. His family thinks he's burning money. But to him, every single change is necessary. Every upgrade matters. And here's the thing. This was never really about the car. What happens between a person and the car they've modified runs deeper than most people will ever stop to think about. When you lower your suspension, swap your exhaust, or remap your engine, you're not just moving metal around. You're saying something about who you are. Think about it for a second. A car is one of the only things you own that you actually live inside. You don't just have it, you spend time in it, hours every day. Sometimes more hours than you spend in your own bedroom. So when you modify it, you're redesigning a space you occupy. It's like decorating a room or picking out the clothes you wear. Except this room moves. It rolls through the world, telling everyone who sees it exactly who you are. Psychologists who study why we buy what we buy have found something interesting. We get attached to objects that reflect the person we wish we were. So the car stops being just a car, it becomes a picture of who you want to become, not always who you are right now. A 23-year-old in an entry-level job might be driving a turbocharged Honda Civic with racing seats. It doesn't match his paycheck, but it matches his dreams, its speed, its power. It's a version of the future where he's already made it. There's a guy named Marcus from Toronto who started modifying cars at 19. He worked 2 jobs just to afford parts for his Subaru WRX. When somebody asked him why he'd spend money he barely had, his answer said everything. Growing up, his family never stayed put. His dad's work moved them through 7 cities before he turned 18. No steady group of friends, no room that ever truly felt like his. But the car. The car was the one thing he could control. Every modification was his decision. His mark. A little piece of stability in a life that never sat still. And that points to something we all feel. The need for control. In a world where so much is out of your hands, a car becomes a place where you're completely in charge. You decide the color. You decide the sound. You decide how it moves. Nobody overrules you. It's a small kingdom, and you're the king. But it's not just about being alone with your machine. Walk into any car meet on a Saturday night and you'll see it instantly. These people aren't just showing off. They've found their people. Someone who's poured 30 grand into a Nissan 350Z might look insane to an outsider. But inside that crowd, he's respected, admired, understood. He speaks the language. Horsepower, torque, stance, the whole vocabulary. A psychologist named Abraham Maslow once mapped out what humans actually need. Right above food and safety, he put belonging. And for a lot of enthusiasts, especially younger ones still trying to figure out where they fit, that community gives them exactly that. A place where what you love is shared, where what you know actually counts, where friendships grow out of a common obsession. There's also a creative side that almost nobody talks about. Building a car is an art form. You're choosing parts, colors, shapes, making the same kind of decisions any artist makes. You're taking something that rolled off an assembly line by the thousands and turning it into something that's only yours. You've got a picture in your head, and you're dragging it into the real world. And when it's finally done, that feeling lights up the exact same part of your brain that any creator feels. Brain researchers have a name for it. When you finish a project you've poured time and effort into, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical tied to pleasure and reward. So when you finally install that exhaust or finish a full paint job, that rush is real. It's the same hit a painter gets finishing a canvas, the same one a writer gets typing the last line of a book. But let's be honest, there's a darker side too. Not every modification comes from a healthy place. Sometimes it's insecurity. Sometimes it's the need to prove something, to other people or to yourself. Psychologists call it compensatory consumption. It's when you buy or change things to make up for something you feel is missing somewhere else in your life. A researcher at a British university sat down and interviewed people who'd modified their cars, and a striking number of them admitted they'd felt overlooked, underestimated, at work, at home, in life. The loud exhaust, the aggressive body kit, the car dropped low to the ground. These became ways of demanding the attention and respect they weren't getting anywhere else. The car turned into a tool for feeling seen. Now, that doesn't mean it all comes from insecurity. That would be far too simple. And it wouldn't be fair. The truth is, the reasons live on a spectrum. Some changes come purely from passion and creativity. Others come from a deeper emotional need the person might not even realize they have. Then there's mastery. We're wired to want to get good at things, and a lot of people who modify cars don't just buy parts and pay someone to bolt them on. They learn to do it themselves. Hours watching tutorials, scrolling forums, making mistakes, slowly getting better. That climb, from clueless to capable, is one of the most satisfying feelings a human being can have. There's a mental state called flow. A psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi described it. That moment when you're so deep into something that time just disappears. And a lot of enthusiasts describe exactly that when they're working on their cars. The task isn't too easy. It isn't impossibly hard. It sits right in that sweet spot where your skill meets the challenge. And what you get is total focus. Picture a father and son in Melbourne who spent 2 years rebuilding a 1990s Toyota Supra together. The father said those hours in the garage gave them the deepest conversations they'd ever had. Bleeding the brakes, adjusting the suspension, and somewhere in between, they talked about life, about fear, about dreams. The car became the bridge, a shared project that opened a door that might have otherwise stayed shut. And it goes beyond just two people. This whole culture creates gatherings, rituals. People drive for hours to get to a meet. They line their cars up in careful rows. They walk around admiring each other's work, asking questions, handing out compliments. These nights fill a need that modern life so often leaves empty. Because think about how we live now. So much of our connection happens through a screen. Old community spaces have faded. The structures that used to hold people together have come apart. And car culture gives back something solid, something real. It pulls people out of their houses and puts them face to face. We evolved in tight little communities, and when the modern world stops giving us that, we go looking for it somewhere else. There's rebellion in it too. Every society has its rules, its idea of what's normal. And modified cars break those rules on purpose. They're louder than they need to be, lower than makes sense, more aggressive than anyone asked for. That's not an accident. It's a quiet kind of rebellion, a way of saying, I don't fully accept the way things are supposed to be. And especially for younger people, that serves a purpose. It's how you carve out your own identity, separate from your family, separate from authority. It's safe rebellion. Nobody gets hurt, nothing serious gets broken. But you still get that rush of standing on your own. And then there's the money, which makes no sense at all, if you're being rational about it. People spend cash they don't have on parts they don't need. On paper, it's crazy. But you're not a calculator. None of us are. We're emotional creatures. We make choices based on how things make us feel, not on some tidy cost-benefit chart. That turbocharger might be a terrible financial decision, but the pride it gives you, the satisfaction, the sense of, yeah, that's me. For a lot of people, that's worth more than the money. And when you really understand why people modify their cars, you start to understand something about all of us. We all want to express who we are. We all need to belong somewhere. We all crave a little control over our lives. We all want to get good at something. The car enthusiast isn't some strange exception. They've just found their way of meeting the same needs every single one of us carries. For some people, it's art. For some, it's music. For some, it's sport. For them, it's the car in the garage. So the next time you see a heavily modified car and your first thought is, what a waste, stop for a second. There's a person behind it, a person with needs being met, a story being told, an identity taking shape. That car isn't just a way to get around. It's therapy. It's art. It's belonging. It's who they are. All of it, wrapped into one loud, lowered, beautiful package.